Hopefully all of you have seen in your local papers across the state a letter from Bill Fenstermaker, the chairman of Blueprint, Louisiana. He recently sent a letter to the editor that ran in 6 major newspapers throughout the state praising the Regents' recent efforts to improve college performance and efficiency. He specifically noted our program review work in which we eliminated or consolidated approximately 300 low completer programs and the development of our performance-based funding formula. In the letter, Mr. Fenstermaker wrote, "The new Commissioner of Higher Education, Jim Purcell, promises additional assessment, including regional reviews. Blueprint Louisiana encourages the Commissioner and the Regents to follow through on that promise." I personally wrote a letter to Mr. Fenstermaker on behalf of all of us at the Board of Regents and for thanking him for Blueprint's support. Blueprint's citizen-driven efforts have played a vital role in identifying the ways that our state can improve, prosper, and grow. And they have been friends to higher education and especially to the Board of Regents, assisting us last year in the passage of the GRAD Act. As to our program review, it was one of the featured stories in the Baton Rouge Business Report this month. This article, entitled, quote, "Degrees of Separation," highlighted our new Commissioner of Higher Education as well as Dr. Karen Denby. Like Blueprint Louisiana, the business report focused on the Board of Regents moving forward with further regional reviews of academic programs in the near future to determine whether courses are meeting the needs of the students, the employers, and the workforce. This board and its staff has done an important transformational work over the past year. And I'm truly pleased that many individuals are now recognizing the positive impact these decisions have on the welfare of our state. Many of you have been going to graduation ceremonies. I know Regent Gorman came recently, Louisiana Tech, this past weekend. I've heard many of you have gone to institutions across the state, and I hope you see that there is a promising trend involving our number of graduates. We spoke this morning concerning in our board development issues of graduation rates and completer rates, and I think Regent Stelly pointed out the overall historic numbers of graduates. And this is something we really do need to emphasize as a great success for our state. While the criticism is every day and the praise is every few years, this is something that we can sing the praises of our institutions for every single day here on out. LSU and Shreveport had 359 degrees awarded, a record. Nicholls State University, 580 degrees. That's a record, an increase of 3% over just last year. Northwestern Louisiana, 908, a 7% increase over last year. The University of Louisiana at Lafayette, 1,455 degrees were awarded. University of Louisiana at Monroe, 863 graduates. That's a 13% increase over last year. Baton Rouge Community College, 800 degrees were awarded this past week. Southern University in Baton Rouge graduated the most PhDs it had ever done this past week. These numbers show that many of our schools get the message that increasing the educational attainment of our citizens is the goal. That is the paramount objective of higher education. They are rising to the challenge that the GRAD Act and the performance funding place ahead of them and doing what it takes to graduate more students. I want to publicly commend these schools, their chancellors, their faculty, their staff, and mostly their students for these milestone commencements. We wish to recommend that they keep up this good work, keep moving the bar higher so that our state reaps the benefits and eventually we have a better educated citizenry.
We wanted to really start out discussing really about assessment in the academy really since America started, and I just wanted to share with you this basic story from 1744 where there were 6 tribes that were negotiating a land swap kind of thing in what is now West Virginia with the gentlemen from Virginia, including George Washington. And during the discussion, there became a conversation about education. And the folks said, well, you know, if you'd like, we'd like to invite a dozen of your good men to come to William and Mary to be educated at our new school there. And the Native Americans thought about it overnight, and they basically came up with this response very polite that it was. And I just sort of want to share with, and you'll see some correlation to some things that are happening today. But they said, "We are convinced, therefore, that you mean to us good by your proposal, and we thank you heartily. But you who are wise must know that different nations have different conceptions of things, and will thereby not take it amiss if our ideas of this kind of education happen not to be the same with yours." We've actually had some experience of it. Several of our young people were formerly brought up at the College of the Northern Provinces, which eventually became Harvard. They were instructed in all your sciences, but when they came back to us, they were bad runners, ignorant of every means of living in the woods, unable to bear either cold or hunger, neither knew how to build a cabin, take a deer, or kill an enemy, spoke our language imperfectly, and were therefore neither fit for hunters, warriors, nor counselors. They were totally good for nothing. And then it went on to say, "We are, however, obliged by your kind offer, though we decline accepting it, and to show our grateful sense of it, if the gentlemen of Virginia will send a dozen of their sons, we will take care of their education, instruct them in all we know, and make men of them." And to some extent, this experience about the connection between education and the workplace still exists today. And I think the closer we can tie those things together can make a difference, because the literature is really saying that those individuals, families, and states that are most educated are prospering, while those with the least higher education are experiencing pretty much relative and absolute economic decline. And so let's think about our future and how we can make that better. Throughout time, not only in 1744, but there's been several points in history, and here I'm going to give you two modern situations where that same question about whether higher education was doing what they were needing to do. And I'm reading just the second paragraph here. "If an unfriendly foreign power had attempted to impose on America the mediocre educational performance that exists today, we might have well viewed it as an act of war." Now, in 1983, they could say that because there was commies everywhere, and we could always blame it on someone else. In 2006, of course, the next generation, the same issue came up, and it says higher education has become what in the business world would be called a mature enterprise, increasingly risk-averse and at times self-satisfied and unduly expensive. So the criticism is still out there. So what can we do? Well, think again, 2 years after that, an article came out by MSNBC. It was basically a report done by the Education Trust, and it says kids are less likely to graduate than parents. And I saw this article and said, man, this is a great article about higher ed. Let's see what it says. But the first sentence was this: your child is less likely to graduate from high school than you were. So the world is different. And we have to think about what can we do to get our folks engaged and moving forward. And y'all remember last month we talked about how many high school graduates we have and how to try to maximize their success, and how we have competition against Dallas, who actually graduates 40,000 just in that little area. And then on April 27th, there was an article that came out in the paper that said that 1 in 3 public school kindergartners in Louisiana fail to reach the 4th grade on time. It just shocked me to just amazingly. And then they went on to quote, the expert in the field said, we'll take 3 kindergartners, little kids, 5 years old, look to your left, look to your right, one of you is not going to make it to the 4th grade on time. And at that point, I began to wonder, when will we in higher education become engaged in trying to address some of these social issues? If you think about all the crises that have happened in this country, they've always eventually come to higher education to sort of work and help solve those solutions. So I've talked to basically a lot of the college and university leaders at a conference about 2 weeks ago, and these are the things that I suggested we should do. One, I reminded them that of 8th graders, 75% of them said they're going to college, so there are some possibilities that we can actually engage these folks to move forward and become successful in post-secondary education. So one is to really work with our local K-12 schools and take it on to ourselves just as citizens and as professionals to help those schools become more successful. And we're everywhere. We have an opportunity to really have an impact in our areas and our regions and really have a great impact on the future. The second one was to work with your local business to define and build a work-ready community. Have that conversation about what is work-ready for your community and how can we, as our whole post-secondary structure, work together to maximize the type of work-ready community or the work community that we need to have for particular communities. Third is to, of course, invest strategically in research and maximize the things that we think can help the state. And the other one is, of course, this thing that I shared with you last week is that the educated workers are actually in our towns in this state. And these are going to be the new cities and new communities that are going to thrive over the long haul. So I've asked the institutions to be stewards of their community. Think about their future and what we can do to help them become successful. Also to engage your community in building a future. And to some extent that talks about having skin in the game. And I've been reading literature about Louisiana the last couple months since I've been here, and there's a book about the history of higher education by, I think, Charles Manning. And he really talks about how historically there's always been this idea of a monarch who always took care of everything in this state, and that even our governance, even today, is all about going to the big building and asking for them to take care of our issues. And what the literature is saying is that you can no longer let a big entity like that manage your future and your success. It has to have local skin in the game. And so what I would suggest is that we do need to talk to these local communities about ways that they can have skin in higher education. And one of them is through scholarships. And I'm going to share with you a couple of them. Tulsa Achieves basically gives free college to anybody in that county and can really change that community very quickly. Tulsa Community College, probably 40% of all the folks in Tulsa go to Tulsa Community College, and now they can go for free. There's a foundation connected to that gives free textbooks to all those kids who get that scholarship. So those things are great possibilities. Of course, El Dorado was talked about this morning because of Murphy Oil. Well, Murphy Oil, one of the leaders there gave El Dorado $20 million for their local community to have free scholarships for all their kids. And it basically changed the dynamic of that community for here on out. Property values went up instantly because everybody wanted to live in El Dorado, Arkansas. College going rates up to over 90%. High school completion, I think, is an 80%. Arkadelphia Promise, a similar thing. The Great River Promise, another. So all those things I think we can do to help them. And then I've challenged the faculty and the deans and all to be stewards of your fields of study and professions. Make sure you produce enough folks that are in that field to keep your program viable, but also make sure that they have the curriculum and content that's appropriate to move your profession forward, because really that's what we're about, is building the future of our professions. And then for the university folks to understand that selectivity is coming, that we as a board are committed to that, and that they should work very closely with affiliating with the community college system and making sure that metric works well as we redirect our students more toward the community colleges as the entry point. And then, of course, 8 is re-engage with our adults. We're doing some of that with the call program, and I think this, too, can have great dividends in quickly getting an educated workforce for us. I want to mention some good news. Just as folks say, well, what's been happening in higher ed? Well, enrollment, of course, has increased 8% since 2008. Degree production is up 13%. And the other thing is a lot of your interventions have actually made a big difference. This new admission standards at the 4-year institutions actually have increased retention from 57% to 63%. The graduation rate statewide from 39 to 42, and the same institution rate from 34 to 37. It does shows that keeping our eye on the prize, these strategies that are being implemented are going to make a big difference and help us become successful.
Not only is the Regents having a positive impact on the state, some of our own individual members are making a difference in their own way. You can see proof of this on the outside of the Mall of Louisiana here in Baton Rouge, where Regent Sam is featured as a living legend in advertisements. The ads were produced by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana in conjunction with the American Heart Association, and it featured prominent African Americans from Baton Rouge region in an effort to not only celebrate diversity, but also to raise awareness of health disparities. Dr. Sam, we congratulate you on this high-profile honor. And if you hadn't seen it, this is what he looks like in scrubs.